everyone. For the last decade or so, our school, UpperStClair, has sent a group of students down to the Dominican Republic. And that trip has been really special for a lot of people. And I've been fortunate enough to go on the last 2 trips. So before we take a peek at some of the lessons from the trips that we've taken, I think it's worth going back and taking a look at a historical perspective. So in the 1960s, a group of scientists from the University of Oklahoma descended on a small town in eastern Pennsylvania. No sooner had they arrived that they realized that something really peculiar was going on with this town. So Rosetta, Pennsylvania was made up of a lot of Italian-American immigrants. They had a diet that was in keeping with their traditions. They ate a lot of pasta. They used a lot of butter in their cooking. They smoked cigars. They would not be what we would call perhaps healthy by today's standards. But here's the strange thing. So in this town that didn't really have great health standards, there was absolutely no heart disease. No heart attacks. No one under the age of 55 had died from heart attacks. No high blood pressure. They were, by all intents and purposes, heart-wise, extremely healthy. So we have this kind of strange issue where somewhat unhealthy people were really healthy with respect to their hearts. So the scientists wondered, what's going on here? And they soon attributed that low heart disease level to stress. In fact, really low levels of stress. And of course, the question then becomes, how are these people having such low stress levels? And they realized that this is the type of community where you don't lock your doors at night. It's a community where the entire place is responsible for helping to raise young children. It's a community where as you grow old, you don't feel abandoned or left out. You feel like you're cared for by all of the people around you. So the community and the friendliness aspect in this place was of really high value. Now, we don't have to go back in history to see that today. It turns out that these places exist in the world around us. So for some context, here is the Dominican Republic. Maybe. There it is. The Dominican Republic sits here. It's between Puerto Rico and Cuba. And if we zoom in on the landmass that contains the Dominican Republic, you see on the eastern half of the island is DR. To the west is Haiti. Now, when our group goes down, we fly into and out of Santiago, which is a city in the north-central part of the country. And you can see the border here on the map, but it becomes a little bit more poignant when you look at a satellite image. So when you look at a border by satellite, you'll notice the right-hand side, which is the Dominican Republic, is extremely green, whereas the left-hand side, Haiti, has been pretty heavily deforested, and it's sad to see. So we'll come back and we'll allude to this a little bit later on in the talk. Now, we fly from Pittsburgh in the winter, where it's completely white in February. We fly over the ocean for about 4 hours, and you can't help but be struck when you touch down with just how beautiful the Dominican is when you arrive. It starts to have kind of a mental conundrum. We have these issues that we process and we talk about and we reflect on as a group, but it's kind of strange to land in a place that's so beautiful, yet the people are going through some pretty hard times that we'll see in a second. And that's a strange kind of juxtaposition for us to have to process. The same thing is true of the place that we stay. So this is the ILAC Center. ILAC stands for Institute for Latin American Concern. This is a center that was funded by Creighton University, which is a US university based in Nebraska. So they send their graduate students, they send study abroad students here, medical students here. This facility hosts groups like ours. This facility hosts people who are in groups like Operation Smile or Doctors Without Borders who want to come to the Dominican Republic to do their work. And as you can see, the grounds of the ILAC Center are again gorgeous. And so we're in this city where we see poverty. We see at times a dirty place, yet we're staying in a place that's extremely beautiful, and it's a strange thing to mentally have to process and go through. Now, the ILAC has a stated mission of helping rural communities in the Dominican Republic. So they recognize that probably people in cities have more access to things like healthcare, education, monetary funds, but the rural communities are often forgotten. So one of our goals when we're down there is taking trips out to rural communities to help communities in need. Now, 2 years ago, which is the first year I went, we went to this community. It's called La Guama. It's in the mountains that are northeast of Santiago. And when we first knew that we were going to this community, we thought that our project would be digging an aqueduct for them, which we thought would be extremely rewarding, this tangible project. We can bring people clean water, which would be an amazing thing to do. When we arrived, we found out that our project was actually going to be to paint this church. And it's hard to be disappointed when you're going down to do service work. That just feels kind of strange to be like feeling bad about helping people. But we were a little bit disappointed that our project seemed to pale in comparison to digging an aqueduct. It turns out we could not have been more wrong. So as we began to paint this church, the entire community Upwards of perhaps 50 people, mainly young kids, came to help us. We had to scrape mold off the side of the church with little rocks. We started painting. And we got to develop a connection with this community that we never would have had we not gotten to work hand in hand with them. We also ultimately built them, or didn't build them, but we painted this church for them. So much like the lessons that we learned from Rosetto, that this is a strong community aspect that leads to low stress and that's a healthier lifestyle, we got to provide a place for that community to feel connected as one, and we did it hand in hand with them. So that was a really rewarding experience for us. And we took a couple of timeouts to play baseball with the kids. We even met our friend Christopher here, who scaled a palm tree by hand and cut us down coconuts, which was amazing. So that was neat to see too. Now this year's trip was a little bit different. We went to a different community. This time we did dig that aqueduct. So we can be seen here carrying PVC pipes, hiked about a mile, carrying the pipes with us to eventually line a long roadway. Our job was to dig a trench where these pipes would go. And in addition, we were to paint this cistern. Now a cistern is essentially a reservoir. So this is fed by a spring. The water collects. When it's needed, it runs down through the pipes. The people in the village can open a valve and then they can have water. Now in the United States, we walk into the kitchen every morning, we walk into the bathroom, we turn on a faucet, clean water, boom, like that. That doesn't exist everywhere in the world, and I think we often lose sight of that. And especially in places like the United States, it's really helpful for children and people of our age to get this perspective, to see that not everyone has that. Because for this village, if they wanted clean water, they needed to take a bucket by hand, several miles perhaps, to a spring or to a stream, carry it back, then they'd have water to wash clothes, to wash their dishes, to shower, and obviously to drink. And that's not necessarily always the cleanest thing. So to be able to offer them clean water was an extremely rewarding and exciting thing for us to do as part of this trip. But it also taught us one of our lessons from the Dominican, which was resiliency. So you'll notice in this picture that we're digging on the right side of the road, but the pipes are lined up on the left, which doesn't work, right? So what's going on here? When we arrived in the village, the first day, we spent about 8 to 10 hours digging through mud, digging through hard quartz rock that we had to break apart with pickaxes. And we eventually ended up with about a foot wide, foot deep, mile long trench to be lined with pipes that would eventually carry clean water to this community. We went to bed feeling fulfilled. We've done a good job. We woke up the next morning expecting to go out and put some finishing touches on, put the pipe in, and then turn it over to the community. And we went down and spoke with the people we had been working with, and like, hey, nice job on that trench. And we're like, yeah, right, we're good. And then they said, yeah, it's on the wrong side of the road. So that's a bummer. Small details, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise, because we had an opportunity to re-dig this trench for them. No one got fired, no one got yelled at. It was a mistake that anyone could make, and in fact, we were not even sure if they knew where they wanted the trench before it was dug in the first place. So they taught us this idea that if you fail, you can get up and you can recover, and things work out for the better. In fact, we did the next trench in about 4 hours because now we knew what we were doing. And also, this road sits on a hillside, and that road is made of dirt. It often washes away. So our original trench is now a drainage ditch, and now they have a trench for an aqueduct and a drainage ditch, so their road won't wash away. So it ended up being a really big blessing in disguise. Now that lesson of resiliency is also carried to another place that we go, which is a Haitian community within the Dominican Republic known as a Bate. This is the Haitian community that we visited for the past couple of years. And when you arrive at the Haitian community, it's again a pretty mentally challenging place to visit. So when you're walking through the community, this is what you see. These are the dwellings where Haitian people live. They are refugees essentially leaving Haiti to go find a better life, normally through farming, in the Dominican Republic. Typically about a family of 8 will live in one of those houses. And when you walk through this, and even when you see it in pictures, you can't help but wonder, if this is what you're running to, then what exactly are you running away from? Now, while you stand there and you look at kind of the devastation that is their everyday life, that resiliency really shines through, because not the physical being of their village, but the people in the village are some of the happiest people you would ever meet. Now, I think they know that their situation isn't ideal. I think they know that other people have it better. But at the same time, given the situation that they've been dealt, they make the most of it every single day. So they're happy, they're smiling, they want to interact with us, the children want to play. In fact, we've played a soccer game the past 2 years, we've gone down. Final score, Haitian people 21, UpperStClair 2. We'll get better, hopefully, as we go along. But the character of these people is what really shines through, and it's perspective that's really helpful for us whenever we visit. The Haitian community known as a Bate has also kind of challenged the way that we do things with our club. So it's been a tradition for UpperStClair with our club is known as Kids Helping Kids. It's been a tradition for everyone to take 50 pounds of checked luggage on the plane and then donate it. So this year we took sporting goods, we took baby clothes, 50 pounds times 24 people. We have about 1,200 pounds of physical donations going to these places. And through discussions with the ILAC as well as things that we've observed, we've started to realize that that might not be the best thing for us to be doing. It might be counterproductive, and that's for 2 reasons. So let's think of Haiti for a second. We saw that deforestation. The United States sends a ton of rice to Haiti, and there are people in Haiti trying to farm rice, and they're trying to farm it by hand, and they're trying to sell their product to their country. When you're trying to sell rice and someone else gives it away for free, it becomes very hard to make a profit. It becomes very hard to make your life better. The other thing that this does is it breeds complacency. So imagine you're at a park and you see a duck and you feed the duck. Come back tomorrow, you feed the duck, and over time you keep feeding the duck. Eventually when you go away, that duck can't scavenge for itself anymore. It doesn't really know that skill anymore. You've been providing so much that it can't learn to help itself. So one of the things that the ILAC pushes that we've felt like is a really good lesson is that perhaps instead of offering physical donations, we need to be offering things like education and medicine and ways for the people who live in these communities to improve their own lives and make their own country a better place. So we may be looking at changing our mindset going forward. Now, the final aspect that we should discuss relates back to Rosetto again, is this aspect of community and connections. So that says 2012. That photo was taken this past year in 2018. Our group again is called Kids Helping Kids, KHK. And this was at a school that our group was fortunate enough to visit in 2012, but we revisited this year in 2018. The school was repainted. You can see it's white with a beautiful Dora on the wall. But they left a square. They left a square open. And the square is obviously a different color, and it says KHK 2012. So when the people of the community were repainting this school, they chose one area to leave untouched. They left untouched the section that allowed them to feel the connection back to our group and the work that was done 6 years ago in the same place. So that was meaningful. Now this feel of connections is ever present wherever you go in the Dominican Republic. So when you're walking down the street or driving, everyone is hanging out on their front porch. In the United States, we have architecture that is such that we have gathering places in the back of our house. We have a back porch, oftentimes it's fenced in. We have a deck where we host barbecues and things of that nature. We invite over friends and family. But we were really trying to escape the rest of the world by kind of hiding in our own little back place. In the Dominican Republic, everything is out front. People congregate on the front porch, they host meals, they put us on the front porch to host our own meals. When people are walking down the street, total strangers join in conversations. We joined countless conversations walking down the street just by people being on the front porch. So it's kind of ironic that in a country and a society where we feel ever connected to the world around us by things like social media, we're actually really, really bad at face-to-face connections. And places that don't have those accessibility things are, in fact, even better at connecting. So that's kind of ironic. The last few slides that I'm going to show you just very quickly are of some of those connections that we've been fortunate enough to make throughout the past trips. And being a teacher, we have to link this back to education somehow. And so I think it's worth thinking about, how do we take our students in the United States and make them more front porch learners as opposed to back porch learners? How do we connect them with the world around them? And I think we have to ask ourselves, the way education's going in today's day and age is things like eliminating gym class. We are taking away music programs. We're being heavy on standardized tests, right? We're turning to virtual labs in science class because it costs less money. And so while those things have their benefits, and oftentimes that benefit is economical or just the sheer volume of students that we need to teach, I'm not sure it's necessarily the right answer. Because the power of the connections, if you ask any of the people that have gone on this trip, the power of the connection that they make and the hands-on experience that they get is more great than anything you could possibly imagine from finding online on a computer in a school. So our club's slogan is Kids Helping Kids, KHK. And oftentimes we feel like our kids are helping the kids in the Dominican. But when we go, it often feels like perhaps that's reversed. Perhaps we get helped more than they do. Thank you.